You're listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Here are your hosts, Fran Chismar and Tom Knezik.
Welcome back to our It's Spring and We're So Busy We Don't Even Have a Topic edition of The Buzz, brought to you by the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. I am Fran Chismar.
And I'm Tom Knezik. And like Fran said, this is episode 53, and it is topicless. Not to be confused with topless. We are wearing shirts.
It would be a very uncomfortable workplace environment if it were not.
We might have to get HR involved. That was the case.
Yeah, it's spring here, and in the native nursery industry, and we're going berserk. Last year was a little bit different because of COVID, and I know where the garden centers we're having maybe some of the best like career years or business years ever, that it was a little bit different for us because all of our projects all of our plants go to projects, which they couldn't plant because of spacing and logistics, and they weren't like in New York City, they couldn't plant.
Yeah, there was things that were just shut down and they wouldn't allow employees on site, or a lot of the dollars that come to Pinelands Nursery are I guess originate from federal funding or government funding in some sense. So a lot of that money was diverted elsewhere. Yeah. And but this year is
with a
different.
vengeance. Yeah, it's back with a vengeance. So we're so crazy that where we had we always have not a script but like an outline put together, which we did, but we were really unable to have time to come up with a suitable topic. We threw some things around, but that takes some research too, and we just typically at this point last year we were doing a podcast every other week, and we'd like to keep it every week, but it's going to be probably a shorter. This may be the shortest podcast that we've done.
We've been saying we wanted to have kind of like a housekeeping episode, and we have our normal segments that we usually do during the buzz. So there's still plenty to keep everyone entertained.
Watch, it will be an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Even though we're like, no,
I got things to do.
I got things to do too.
Oh, you go, Fran.
No, I was going to say, do you want to kick right into it?
I was going to say, let's get started by featuring the plants we're vibing with this week in That's Hot.
It's hot.
Would you like to go first?
Sure.
All right. I think I always go first. Like
you tend to go first.
All right.
So my plant this week, and I only just saw this in my garden yesterday. I knew I planted them, but I kind of forgot. And then I was like, oh, what's that flower? Oh yeah, it's a wild geranium, and that's Geranium maculatum.
Nice.
It's a fact up plant in this area.
What's the other common name for that? Is it cranesbill?
There's another one that's like cranesbill,
okay.
Something or other, but that's a different species.
Okay, gotcha.
But I've also seen it spotted geranium. Maybe they call it cranesbill too, but I didn't get that far. But one of the things that's really great about this plant is it likes part shade and shade. So you can have it on like that wood edge or as a border plant where it's going to get a lot of shade during the day. And it provides it stays fairly short, like a foot and a half.
Yeah.
So it almost works like a ground cover way. It's not evergreen, I'm pretty sure.
No.
But but it does stay low to the ground and gets pretty bushy, but and has a really unique leaf that looks like a weed that's in my garden too. But it's got like a lobed leaf that's kind of palmated at the same time. And has pink flowers with 5 lobes, just like a traditional, like if you gave a toddler a crayon and said, hey, draw a flower, this is what the flower would probably look like.
That's a great description.
And
actually,
but it's still very attractive at the same time. It doesn't get covered in flowers, but it gets enough flowers to make it interesting. Just a great plant for shade. And my fun fact about this plant, friend, you're really going to find this interesting.
All right, I'm ready.
They would use the whole plant to boil the whole plant and make a tea that would cure diarrhea.
Right. Well, we're gonna have to put that one to the test. That remains to be seen. I wish like you could go back to the day where that was someone's main concern is I have this issue. We need to let's just boil some stuff and find out what will get rid of it. So I'm curious All right.
That's whenever you look up a lot of these plants, a lot of native plants have, and invasive plants and non-native plants have medicinal uses historically as well. But it seems like they all like listed, oh, this will cure diarrhea.
Yeah, but I guess you go back a couple hundred years and you use what you had.
Oh yeah,
you
had
that's,
to.
And that's it. You know, and it's all right. Like I said, we're gonna have to put that one to the test at some point. We'll report back on that one. All right. So for my that's hot. A lot of mine have been, not that when we're that busy, I don't always really get to walk through the nursery. Like I'm on the nursery and I'll, taking photos or doing something for a customer. But, again, this one I happen to notice in my own yard, which is cinnamon fern, Osmunda cinnamomium. Although they changed the botanical, it's now Omundastrum cinnamomium.
Those damn botanists.
I know. So that may be my complaint later on. So, it's a facultative wet. It gets 3 to 5 foot tall. When it pushes out, it gets cinnamon colored hairs on the base of each frond. Classic fiddlehead. And the fiddleheads can be eaten. And from what I've never eaten one, but from what I understand, they resemble asparagus in taste.
I've had fiddleheads before. I think they were ostrich fern fiddleheads. Someone else had collected them and given to me, and I think they were pickled. And they did kind of have like an asparagus-y flavor. And ever since then, this was when I was in college. So this is like over 10 years ago. Ever since then, I've said, you know what? Next year is going to be the year I go out and get fiddleheads, and I still have not picked a single one.
Listen, I could have had them in my yard, and I didn't.
Yeah.
And I know they're cinnamon fern, but like always, disclaimer: if you're going to try something, be sure it is what it is before you try it. To me, like cinnamon fern is one of the easier ferns to ID when they're coming out. But please know what you're doing before. Just don't go grabbing and eating. Make sure you know what you know.
Yes,
but I think that's, I have that coming up naturally in my yard right now, and I'm loving it. So it's right near the Canada Mayflower, and it made me think, I'm like, man, I love this time of the year. So it's
very cool.
Yeah.
Is there any research on if that's an anti-diuretic as well?
Not that I know of. Not But I think if it, you know what, I'm not even gonna go there. I'm just gonna,
we don't have a topic, and then I start making poop jokes. That's
I was gonna say. But if you're going to have it and it does resemble the taste of asparagus, you can have that without worrying about being self-conscious about the color of your urine.
Yeah.
So there you go. There you go. That's what level we're on without a topic. So, all right. All right. We should move on.
Yeah. With that, let's get to this week's competition. Of course, it's a competition for our current events that are all botany based. So with that, we're going to move to this or that.
You can get with this or you can get with that.
So we do have a winner, and the winner is me, 9 to 5.
Okay.
So it wasn't too bad. I realize
that I often forget to put up the vote on time.
No, I don't get that excited when I win. It's not so much the excitement of winning. I just don't want to lose. Like when I lose, I'm much more emotional than the weeks that I win.
Yeah.
So I just don't like losing, but I'm like indifferent about winning. It's just like,
I think I might, don't want to say I have the same mantra, but I started to just pick articles that I like and may not resound with the audience as much.
No, but, you know what? And I do that sometimes too. Yeah. So I'm going to go first. I'm going to choose to go first because I feel that your article is actually a better article this week, and I want you to go.
Well, I liked it better than I had another article that I liked that popped up yesterday, and I'm like, ooh, this is a good one. I could definitely win if I use this one, but I didn't.
I think you're going to win with this one, and that's why I kind of like, because I feel it's a better article. I want you to.
Oh, it's definitely a more reputable source.
Totally. All right, so my article. It's from the Somerville, Massachusetts government website. And it's the city of Somerville, Massachusetts passed its first of its kind native planting ordinance. So again, I highlighted some passages from the article that I'm going to read because I think that will do a much better job than paraphrasing. So Somerville has passed a native planting ordinance that establishes minimum requirements for native plants and trees to be planted in city-owned parks, open spaces, and streets. Now, this part's not novel. What is different is the legislation which applies to new plantings carried out by the city or on behalf of the city grew out of discussions between administration, city council, and community advocates. It was passed unanimously in March, but the ordinance defines native plants and trees as those with origins in North America east of the Mississippi River and requires that native species constitute 100% of all new plantings in any city-owned land or community path, the Green Line Extension Corridor, and riverfront areas, at least 75% of new plantings in city-owned parks, and at least 50% of street trees and new plantings in bioswales, plazas, streetscapes, and other city-owned properties, subject to certain exemptions. But it's believed to be the first of its kind because it includes percentages requirements for planting native species across all landscape types, whereas similar legislation in other cities encourage doing so, but it doesn't really give a specific metric. Like, it doesn't say it has to be this much. Like, they're actually requiring, hey, 50% of this or 100% of that. And that's really a first. So this is something I'd like to monitor, come back a year from now and see how many other cities have adopted this, because this is really groundbreaking for me that that they're making that step, that they're committing to this, and it's going to change the face of that city as well. And I hope that there's studies that report back as far as increased wildlife or songbirds or, just how that changes and how it's received by the public. Like, I would love to know their sense of biophilia a year from now.
Yeah. And what was interesting to me is seeing that they had different percentages for different areas. Yeah. Which in my mind, well, why didn't they just make it 100% for everything? But it kind of makes sense because you figure they probably did the research and, hey, it's really hard to do 100% for this kind of application. So,
in dealing with cities, I could see where they're thinking, hey, in this area, the visibility has to be, nothing can be higher than this. And maybe there isn't a native option that falls in that category for them. So they have to go non-native for visibility or safety or right of ways. Like, it is still a city and it's still a non-native environment, but the fact that they're trying to naturalize it is huge, especially after what we just talked about with Jason Smith from NYRP last week. So I felt that this was groundbreaking, and I'd love to see where it goes from here. Maybe a year's not even enough, because maybe they don't do a lot of planting this year, but maybe 5 years down the road, I would love to revisit this and know how things have changed and how many other municipalities have adopted this.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you're part of a municipality, environmental board or something like that, and you want to know more, contact them, learn a little bit more, see what they're doing, and see if you can adopt it. Now's the time. It is. We always want to think that these things aren't possible, that they can't be accepted enough to do. Here's proof that it is. So make it happen.
Yeah,
all right,
very cool.
That's it.
All right. So my article is that was a really good job, Fran.
Thank you.
And that's
Thank you.
Good on the city of Somerville, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
that's Massachusetts.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that's huge.
So my article was also about cities, and kind of followed the theme I took last week with NYRP, and how I said, I don't really like cities, and I felt a little bad saying that during the episode, but after reading this article, I no longer feel bad about it because it seems I'm not a crazy person. My article is actually titled, "If you prefer city living over nature, you might be a psychopath." Studies so that headline made me feel a little bit better. Now, I will put a disclaimer out here. Yeah. This was published in the New York Post, which if going back a couple episodes, I was saying, hey, make sure you go to reputable sources. So I dug a little deeper on this, and it was actually published in the New York Post about an article that came out in another paper called like PsyOps or something like that, about a study that was done, that was published in the Journal of Environmental Psychology, which I guess I didn't realize it was big enough of a field to have its own journal.
Yeah.
But no, that's pretty cool that it has its own journal.
That is awesome.
But and I took a couple of segments from the article here, and this was by Hannah Frischberg, easy enough name. She is the author there, and I didn't buy the actual study from online because it was $39.95, but I did read the abstract, so that goes somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
that goes somewhere. Yeah.
But basically, this article said city slickers are more likely to be psychotic, or so says a study published by the Journal of Environmental Psychology, which found a correlation between people who exhibit darker personality traits and a preference for urban over suburban and rural areas. Using the crowdsourcing website Prolific, researchers at the University of Derby surveyed 304 UK-based adults on their preferred geographical setting, how connected they felt with nature, and their personality type. The resulting data showed a correlation between socially adverse personality traits like sadism. This is not good. I'm married to an English teacher. I can't pronounce that. Sadism and narcissism, and being partial to inner city living. So that was pretty crazy. Like I didn't like going to the city because I didn't have any admiration for the giant buildings and like the little green things you saw growing often look sad and out of place. Yeah. And maybe it's because the people who live there are psychopaths and I'm a regular guy.
If you think even the correlation between the amount of crime that occurs in cities, now I know there's a bigger population, or like serial killers, like I'm thinking like Son of Sam or like those which happen in cities, but then I'm thinking, didn't the Unabomber live out in the woods? I guess there's always an exception. I know it's not 100% across the board.
And in my mind, they had a pretty small sample size. They again did the study again in a different area when I read more about it with a similar, like another 300 people.
Okay.
But 300 people really isn't that many.
No,
but it just made me think. And it was kind of funny after I said, oh yeah, I don't like cities because I like being in nature. And then this article comes out like a couple of days later.
Yeah. And here I am going, no, I think I could live in a city. But here's the thing. I think I could live in a city, but that doesn't mean I would prefer to live in a city over a more country setting.
Yeah. And there were some other things with this article that in the study that went into it that they said they needed to research more as well, because it didn't necessarily reflect where people had lived either. It wasn't like, oh, they were born in a city and that's what made them this way. It was like people lived all over, and then it was just where they lived then, or where they preferred to live is what they looked into. So they had to find why this relationship existed, but they did find a relationship, at least in the beginnings of the study, which was published last December.
Okay.
But they did find a relationship with people who preferred living in cities versus preferred living in rural areas. The ones that preferred living in cities had those darker personality traits.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to.
Yeah.
I think you have to.
So yeah, Fran, you live in the country, so what's your excuse?
Because I grew up in a suburb, which was basically a city. I think that's it. So during my informative years, that's where that all happened. But
so as always, we'll post these on our Facebook group. I'm gonna make a promise here that I'm gonna get them out by 2 p.m. on the day that we post this. So,
all right.
The episode's going to air on Friday morning. So by 2 p.m. Friday afternoon, these are going to be online, and we want everyone to go vote. I particularly want you to vote for me because I can't lose 3 in a row. But really just read the articles, dig a little deeper, do some more research, and go vote.
So before we get into our next segment, the article that you were going to choose, and you had posted it on our social media already.
Yes. Yeah.
Was that, not saying that they're going to, but the White House, if they really wanted to make an impact, they should redo the gardens to be native gardens.
Yeah. It was an opinion piece from Scientific American about how, like, if you want to promote native gardens, it's got to start at the top. So make the White House a native garden.
I agree. And what made me think about that was when the last administration was redoing the garden, and a lot of our colleagues were saying, hey, our boxwoods went to the White House, our roses went to the White House. And I'm like, is that really sending the right, I was thinking at the time, is that really sending the right message? Like, I would love to see native plants. What would you like to see if they were to take out that garden that the last administration put in and redid? I know every administration kind of does their own thing. What would you like to see?
Man, a lot of everything, I guess, is the real answer.
I would love to see a meadow.
I would
love to see a meadow.
Would be pretty cool. I don't know how much ground they're even really working with there. But
you could have like Secret Service and ghillie suits like down in the meadow. Like that would be awesome. They would just pop up out of nowhere. Like that would be
I
cool.
forget who told me this. I don't even know how true it was, but I think it was like a high school gym teacher. So that means it was completely not true.
Yes.
But they were saying they were outside the White House like for a tour with their family or something like that, and someone said, "Oh, how far? If you jump that fence, how far do you think you could make it?" And then like a whisper came from the bushes. The guy said about 20 feet. There was like a Secret Service guy in there.
I hope that's true.
Yeah, me too. I hope it's true, but I have no clue. But
yeah, but I would love to see, you're right. Like I would love to see something that would represent that area in the not just native plants in general, but native plants to that mid-Atlantic area there. I think that would be phenomenal.
So yeah, well, we should start a campaign where we can I gotta put this delicately. Where we write to I guess we write to the president. I don't know how you do it. Tweet them.
Yeah,
we're all gonna tweet and say,
at him.
hey, and or even you could tweet Dr. Jill Biden. I bet if you got her on board, then we can get the rest of them.
If you look at how ahead of the curve Delaware is being on banning invasives, maybe it's and that's
promoting natives. They're actually really ahead of the curve for a lot of this stuff. So
considering President Biden's history with Delaware, it's maybe it's
the links are there. The links are there. We just gotta make a push and make sure that we're on his radar, and he's got to put native plants in the White House garden.
Maybe we should be his staff environmentalists. Maybe that should we keep trying to parlay this podcast into something something bigger. There you go. That's our next calling right there. All right, you want to get to, let's see, what do we have next?
We got some listener shout outs.
Oh, and I did create a brand new jingle for let's premiere it. You ready?
Listener shout out.
That sounds professionally done.
What do you think?
That's pretty good. It's better through headphones.
Yeah.
When you played it for me on your phone, it was a little quiet. I'm like, oh no, but through headphones, it's got the reverb going on.
Yeah, nice. That was pretty good. Yeah. That was actually me through a voice changer while driving in my car.
Oh, distracted driving, friend.
No, well, maybe was I driving? Maybe I was like but I was in my car and the car was running. So like that buzz at the beginning was a car going by, slowed down, and then I deepened it.
Yeah.
So that's all. So that was actually my voice.
Yeah, pretty good.
You're not confusing me.
You're not going to confuse you with a woman.
But by the way, I did get called ma'am today on the phone. Someone said thank you, ma'am. So
you're good for one of those a week.
One a day almost. All right. So do you want to go or do you want me to go?
I'll let you go first. You're first on the list. So.
All right. So I had two, and both I think are funny because both had constructive criticism. And our first is Marion Whitcomb, who after our Turf Wars Buzz episode kind of took exception to our stance on a couple things. And I have to admit, when I responded to Marion, I was very defensive. And, for as much as I love getting the criticism, it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
It really does, because I realize you can't make everyone happy. Like, for as much as you want to, and what's hard whenever you're doing something creative,
you want people to like it.
You want people to like it, but for every person that says, you guys are great, you get someone that go, yeah, you're not that great. And you have to try to strike a balance. You want to stay true to yourself and do what your vision was, and do what your vision is and who you are. But you're not against trying to improve, but you can't make every change that everyone asks you to make, because then you're not doing your, you're changing it for one person or a small demographic instead of what I feel like if we stay true to what we're trying to accomplish, we will have our best results.
Yeah.
So, but not saying we're not above listening to it, but it kind of drove me crazy.
Yeah.
So,
and that was particularly, she was talking about dandelions, right?
Dandelions and mosquitoes. And my response back was defensive, and her response back was extremely nice, and I did respond one more time. So I was happy that even though I got a little defensive, it ended with a very constructive, nice conversation, which is what we keep saying. You have to have both sides of the argument and the conversation. So I'm happy that someone said, I disagree with you.
Yeah.
This is my side. And I could say, I don't know that I necessarily agree. This is my side. And then for us to both kind of respect it at the end and walk away and feel okay. And that's what we've been preaching. And it was nice to have that kind of interaction with one of our listeners.
Definitely.
The other one was a 5-star review from Teeny NCC on Apple Podcast, who
it was a 5-star review that had a
it
little
was a
backhand,
5-star
compliment in
review
there.
that said they were starting from the beginning and they hope that I've gotten better because I'm not a good interviewer and for me to please let the guests speak. So, and it's not, they're not the first listener that has said that. So you're right. And that's my personality. Like I have said, I was voted most talkative in high school and, you know, I'm still pretty, you can attest to that. I'm still really talkative. So it's constructive and I realize it. I know deep down that's true. And I've tried to get that. I think we have improved.
Oh, definitely.
I think realistic. I'm partially joking and I'm partially not. If you're starting from the beginning, I think I turned the corner around episode 30, you know, and it's, I know that's a long time and I'm sure there's an improvement, you know, to defend myself a little bit. I think some of that is we were doing it by phone and not Zoom. And it's hard to judge when someone's done talk because you're speaking with someone and they just take unnatural pauses, but they're not done.
Yeah.
And you step over them. And sometimes you do have guests that aren't as talkative and you kind of feel like you're trying to pull it out of them a little bit. So I know there's some of that and some of me just being excited.
Yeah, no, the Zoom was a game changer.
Yeah.
Because, and we talked about doing it for a while and like, it costs a little bit of money and
it changes the quality a little. Our equipment doesn't capture the sound as well. So I know we sacrifice quality a little bit.
But just being able to see the person and see when they're taking a pause in between thoughts, like, and they're going to say something else.
Yes.
Oh man, that made a world of difference. I remember there's a couple of times where it was like, we thought they were done talking and we just kept like cutting them off. And especially if you had two people, that's where it got really difficult.
You know, and sometimes, like I said, you just get excited. Like when we had Dr. Talamy on, I know there were a few times where I wasn't letting him talk. Part of that was Zoom. Part of me was that just me being a little kid and being excited, you know, and it's, I think the novelty is worn off. Not saying that there's no one that doesn't impress us, but you do 50 some episodes of the podcast and it starts to, not saying I don't get a little nervous before we talk to someone, but not in the same way. Like I kind of feel like some of the early conversations I'd sit here going, I can't believe I'm doing this. I don't feel like I should be a part of this conversation. And now I'm like, I can hang in there. You know, I deserve to be here to at least have this conversation. So I think there's a few factors, but like anything else, you improve as you go along. So hopefully you feel the same way, Teeny NCC, as you progress and you feel it different. Hopefully you make it to, if you
hopefully by the time you're listening to this, you agree with us.
I hope so. You know,
in June of 2022,
you know, but it's, you know, and hopefully we continue to improve as we go along too. So it's a learning process, you know, and sometimes I just am a bad guest or a host. I'm a bad interviewer. Sometimes I know it, you know, it is what it is. Sometimes everyone has on days and off days.
So mine was another member of the Facebook group, but not because of what he does on Facebook, but Patrick Gilliam, which I hope I'm saying your last name right. But he picked up some plants over the weekend and I just happened to be there when he was picking up and I got to talk to him a little bit. Very taller than I was expecting.
Taller than you? Because you're pretty tall.
Yeah, definitely taller than me.
Oh, that's tall.
Yeah, so very tall. But it's always nice to meet people face to face and talk a little bit about plants and life and just how things are going. So I'd met him a couple times before, but I just never put a name with a face until this weekend. So it was nice to actually meet him in person.
Awesome. That's very cool. I guess I should shout out too. I was speaking with someone today who called in that's a new customer and they'd never dealt with us before. And as we were talking, he was like, you know, it's very weird talking to you because I started out as a listener to the podcast and that's how I learned about your nursery. So after listening all this time, it's weird to talk to you. So his name, if it's I don't remember his name, but if it's the same as what showed up on the caller ID, if he was using his phone, it was Richard McCracken. So hopefully he's listening and hears us.
Yeah.
And it was very nice to interact. We always get a lot of our customers are listeners, and it's always nice to get the kind word that, hey, I listen, and it was good to hear. So
yeah.
So at least it's nice to have that little affirmation.
Definitely.
So all right. So what's next? You want to do? There is one call.
I was hoping we got the skip questions this week, but if we got a call, we got to answer it. That's what we said.
We do have one.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. And I want to have them answered immediately.
It's a simple question.
No, I didn't hear you. What was your question?
And Fran, before we get started here, if you're watching the video, you're probably wondering why I'm like looking down and maybe you can even hear this, but I had like a little hangnail or a little chip in my cuticle and I bit it and I'm bleeding like crazy.
do you need to take a
second?
I'll be good.
I'm using these packing peanuts that I found on my desk.
We have these biodegradable packing peanuts made out of cornstarch that I guess make a good
I was like flicking with my fingernail and then I bit it and it didn't work. So
all right, so I think our next caller pretty much needs no introduction at this point. Please, for a while the question and comment line was really picking up and everyone was using it. It's kind of tapered off a little bit. So remember that we do have the question and comment line. Please call. I know everyone loves to hear Saul's phone calls, as do we, but we would love to know that.
We want someone who maybe has a little bit more of a knowledge base, I guess.
We
don't have to spend so much time going through weird references
and picking out everything that's wrong with the phone calls. But just remember, if you have any questions, I know everyone throws a lot of these questions out in our Facebook group, but we would love to. We can get a little bit more in depth and spend a little bit more time if you leave your questions. I know some people are self-conscious and don't want. They don't want to hear their voice on the air. I understand that, but it was weird just getting used to hearing my voice on the air. So, but
you can always use a voice changer app and
use
call in disguise.
Dr. Evil, that is your next, we haven't gotten another phone call from you. Next phone call, we want a voice changing app. You need this to at least sound like Batman when you call it. All right. You ready for the question?
I'm ready.
All right.
Sowing the seeds of love, seeds of love. I love the whole music these fellas have. It's so good. I hope they have the 7-second delay because sometimes there could be some foul language. Wait, am I on hold now? Am I on the air with the boys? Thank you. Hello to Thomas, the English Muffin Man. And of course, my good friend over the years, Pam Balam, the Answer Man. So, fellas, we were talking briefly about overseeding on a lawn. And I have moved, as you guys know, with your influence, Pam, up there in that noggin of yours, the smarts, and Thomas, you're no slouch either. I don't believe anyway. So we are talking now about overseeding my property, which has tremendous acreage of what we call the old turf grass. So I was talking to a good pal of mine in New York. He's in the garment district, and I borrowed from him a big Singer sewing machine, and we were dragging it through the tunnel on a truck. And when we got into New Jersey, it fell off. So, fellas, I was wondering if perhaps Thomas, you know how to do these things. If I could borrow a truck from your farm there, and we could put it back, and then we could overseed my lawn, because when I got it onto the trailer, I kind of hurt my shoulder a bit, and I'm not quite up to the task, if you will. Now, Pam, I saw you interviewed on, I believe it's called the Hello America, with the Joan London, and I like her very much, and I thought she did a very good job with you. And I was wondering, is she related to Jean London? That was just a little off topic. And also that David Hartman. I'm not sure he's a very nice person, but anyway. So I'm rewilding my lawn. Pam, you had told me I should do that, and I was wondering about if there's specific seeds that I should be using for the seeding and the riparian buffer, which also raises a question. There used to be an announcer, and I believe his name was Riparian Buffer, and I'm not sure if he would be the guy who said, "Let's get ready to overseed our lawn." So, fellas, I've given you a lot of topics, and I'm a fan of the program, and I look forward to hearing from you. My name, of course, is Saul, and I'm gardening here on my estate in New Jersey, and I could use a little help, Thomas, my friend the English Muffin, with a truck, perhaps.
I don't even know where to start.
All right. I was writing notes furiously as
Yeah.
we went along. So I thought we'll address the main topic at the end,
Yes.
but it might be good to address some of the inaccuracies.
Yeah,
As
and some of the things that we've really liked about the call too. First, with my new nickname of being the English Muffin Man, which I really at first I wasn't so sure, but
I love it.
Grown to really like it.
I really like it too. I've used it in the podcast descriptions. Tom the English Muffin Man. But what's mine? Pam
the Answer Man,
or
I
was
don't know.
Pam the Lamb? He was saying Pam the
Pam the
Lamb,
Lamb.
the Answer Man. I like the Answer Man though.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm really the Answer Man, but I
Yeah.
kind of like that
Yeah.
nickname. So, but I love how he still thinks this is terrestrial radio,
Yeah, I don't know what hold music he was listening to.
and that he's wondering when he's on air because he's leaving a voicemail that we play on the air. So it's
And what was the song he was singing in the beginning? Did you
Sowing the Seeds of Love by Tears for Fears.
Okay,
You don't know that song?
I don't. I guess I don't.
Wow. I want to say when did that come out? Probably early 90s. I want to
Okay.
say.
So I was alive.
Late 80s, early 90s, maybe
I was
89.
listening to Raffi and Sesame Street at that point.
Yeah, no, it was I want to say maybe it was like 80, late 80s, probably, maybe like 89, 87 to 89, somewhere. But yeah, that's Tears for Fears. It was a big hit.
Mm-hmm.
I was never interviewed by Joan. First of all, Joan London has, what was it, Good Morning America? I think she was the host of until like 1994. Like, so like that's such an old reference. And not only that, Gene London. All right, if you're not from the Philadelphia area, Gene London was like a children's show host in Philadelphia, like that I think went off the air in 1977. But my brush with Gene London, which I didn't have a brush with Gene London, but growing up, someone who worked on his television show lived in my development.
Mhm.
And for Halloween, he took home the Halloween set from the Gene London show and converted his house into a haunted house based on. So it was a big attraction because people know he worked there. So at the time, I was probably like 5 or 6 years old, and my mom was walking me around the development for Halloween, and like this street, at least as a kid, it seemed like it was on a huge hill.
Yeah.
It's probably like a mild
Yeah,
slope,
yeah.
but it seemed like a huge hill. So my mom was walking me up, and we stopped in front of the house, and it was like a plated glass window, like a stained glass window in the door with like diamond plates.
Yeah.
And there was a hole in the door where he had a mask on, and his head fit in the hole in the glass.
Yeah.
So as we walked past the house, we kind of stopped and I was looking, and the guy looked and went, "Come in." And my mom's like, "No, I don't think so. He's not a fan of the scary stuff. We're just gonna keep going." And he's like, "Come in." And my mom's like, "No, we're going to keep going." And then he goes, "I said, come in." And he opened the door and chased. My mom screamed at the top of her lungs and grabbed me by the arm and dragged me down the hill. I was like, "We got to go." So that was my little brush with the Gene London show. So there you go. That's if you want to know what's wrong with Fran, that's one of the many
Answers
reasons.
a lot of questions. Yeah.
So the announcer was not called Riparian Buffer. I believe he was speaking of Michael Buffer.
Yeah.
Who's, I don't even think we could say it. We could get sued.
Yeah.
So I guess let's get ready to, what we're talking
And
about.
then who is more popular between Michael Buffer and then Bruce Buffer, brothers, obviously.
Yeah.
One doing the announcing for boxing,
Yeah.
and the other one doing for UFC.
Yeah.
Or not announcing, but
I think, Michael Buffer has a great voice and obviously is known for that phrase, but I think his brother is probably much. I'm sure it costs a lot to have Michael Buffer announce.
Yeah.
Where his brother's probably more affordable, but it's more accessible. I think more people. I think probably your generation knows who he is more so than Michael Buffer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you agree with me on that.
No, that's kind of how I felt too. I think just like growing up and then going through high school, and that's like when UFC became really popular. But then people, I didn't watch boxing growing up. So
now I know there's an age difference. Do you care to, on the air, admit to what you didn't?
Oh yeah, I'm fine with
all right. So
I've admitted I wasn't scared of the dark on this show. Or I was scared of
all right. So you made two confessions after the last
I
episode.
only remember one, but
all right. I don't know if you want to say the second one.
Okay.
The second one was there was someone who you didn't know who they were.
The first one I was thinking of was I didn't know who Bette Midler was.
That was Well, the other one was
I knew the name, but I didn't know what she was famous for.
But she was famous. Like I guess her biggest years were the 70s and 80s, and maybe the early 90s, which you were still a kid. So I could understand like when I was a teenager, Beaches was huge. When I was younger, The Rose. There was a lot of iconic things for her. So she was iconic by the time I was already a teenager, which I guess her from Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, which I didn't even put that together until later.
Which I've never seen that movie, by the way, which our coworkers were giving me a hard time because I didn't see that movie.
Yeah. I don't love that movie. I'm also not someone who would fall in the demographics for that movie, I guess.
But one of our listeners had posted in the Facebook group that she was hoping that a lot of our listeners were at least 40 years old because she was hoping that my Glenn Ross comment didn't go over their head. And you were like, I didn't know who they were. What did they say?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
I was like, they weren't a band. It was a David Mamet play that they made a movie, but it was like Alec Baldwin, Al Pacino. Like I'm trying to remember if it's real estate sales, but it's like high pressure sales. And I guess the newer version of that movie was, if you've ever seen Boiler Room with Vin Diesel and Giovanni Ribisi.
I haven't.
It's they're selling like stock scams, like Ponzi scheme stocks, like trying to get, and it's like this high pressure, high sales, like how cutthroat and intense it was. And that's why I made the reference to the place that I worked where we did the spraying. Yeah. So, but when you said, I don't know who that is. What did they say?
Yeah. I
love that.
I will step back to Bette Midler being in Hocus Pocus. That was another movie. I guess when I say I didn't fit the demographics, is I don't like anything scary. Like I think I even said I was scared of Mary Poppins, not Mary Poppins herself, but the bird lady. I thought she lived under my bed up until about 2 years ago, and
I'm not a fan.
Doesn't even get a laugh.
Does Melissa like horror movies?
I wouldn't say she likes horror movies, but she just started watching American Horror Story on Netflix, and I was asleep on the couch and she was watching. I could just kind of like wake up and hear some of it. I'm
See, that would drive
you. Got to turn this off. This is too much for me.
The one thing I appreciate, like I'm not a horror movie fan. I don't like scary stuff. I don't. I've never been a fan of it. It bothers me. So I love the fact that Agatha, it feels the same way. Like she doesn't watch it. Neither. It never even comes across our radar. Like. I have seen scary movies in the past. Like my oldest son, Darian, loves horror movies, just loves it. I think because he's a psychology major, I think he loves the psychology part of it. It fascinates him. But all right, since we're sharing and since we don't have a topic, during my first marriage, before we were married, I don't even know if we were engaged yet. My ex was a huge Anne Rice fan. So when Interview with a Vampire came out, we went to see Interview with a Vampire. And I passed out from that. Now, it might have been the bad acting or the blood, but there's a scene where I don't know if it's Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt, but they puncture, it's like a barmaid's wrist with their ring. and I was sitting there and I got like the cold sweat. We were in the front of the movie theater, and this was back before multiplexes. So it was a 2-screen movie theater in Philadelphia. And I started to get the cold sweats and I started to get like a little woozy. So I'm like, I think I'm going to go get some air. And as I'm walking up the aisle, like I started getting tunnel vision and and it wasn't a crowded theater.
Yeah.
But I hit the double doors and I I'm like, I don't feel good. And I rushed out and I pushed open the doors and I passed out. So I came to leaning against the wall and I ripped a movie banner down and it was lying over top of me. And the lobby, like to the street, it was in a strip mall.
Mm-hmm.
It was all glass. There was no one in the lobby. There was no one in the concession stand, no one walking by. No one saw this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I passed out. There's some banner, like I'm moving it and I'm like, I need to, go throw some water in my face. So I went to go into the bathroom and the one wall as you go, I was still foggy, was a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole wall was a mirror. So I thought I was walking into the bathroom, but I walked face first into the mirror and I passed out again. So I came to flat on my back in the bathroom. And like no one was in the bathroom. No one witnessed any of this. So I kind of like sat down for a second. I washed my face, my hands, and just kind of, I'm like, I need like something with sugar, soda. Like no one came to the concession stand. I stood there forever. My ex never even came to look for me. Like I came back in and she's like, where have you been? Like, what's going on? I'm like, I just passed out twice. And she's like, you want to go? And I'm like, no, I got to sit down. And I just kind of put my head between my legs and just, that was there. How's that for embarrassing?
Interesting.
Yeah. Did you ever hear that story?
I maybe at some point.
Okay.
I don't remember, but I don't know who Anne Rice is either. But we should get back to plants.
All right. Yeah. All right. So, all right. So Saul called about drill seeding or seeding is lawn. So obviously you're not going to use a sowing machine to
sow seed.
It's a different kind of sowing, but there is a drill seeder where it basically inserts seed into the ground. Yeah. So if you're seeding a large area, you may want to look into that kind of equipment too. But there's a lot of prep work. You may want to go back. We had a whole buzz episode where we had calling questions. I think it was Lori Cleveland or Carolyn Klauba. It was someone from the Sauerland Conservancy. Someone else actually called in and you may want to go back and listen to that episode because we really did go in depth. But you're not using a sewing machine.
Yes.
Yeah. But for seed, there's no magic seed mix that we can say across the board, Saul. You really have to look at your area and like we always preach, right plant, right place. You really, if you're not sure, if you can identify locally what's around that's native, that's a good starting place, but you really need to know your soil type, the hydrology, your conditions, your weather. And if you're unsure, hire a consultant to come out that can help you put together a seed mix. So we have plenty of seed mixes that are predetermined. Like we do have a riparian buffer mix and things like that for certain conditions that are a little more generic to go across the board the
seed mixes that we're designing tend to be something that is native to a wide area across the Mid-Atlantic, and you're going to find in a variety of conditions that match that scenario. So
but you can have a custom mix made if there's things that you want. It's a little bit more expensive, but if there's something that you're looking for that's not in some of these generic mixes, then you can ask for a custom mix.
But the big thing with using native seed, and I think he was kind of mixing up putting that in his lawn and all kinds of stuff.
Buffer,
but if you have this area that you're gonna use native seed on, you got to understand it's almost a shotgun approach. You're putting down a lot of material. There's a good portion of it that's not going to germinate, and part of it is saying, hey, like you're going to hope that the right seeds find their way into the right places to germinate, and the things are going to pop up where they're supposed to pop up. If something requires a lot of moisture, you're going to hope that you have enough seeds in there that they're going to fall in places that have a lot of moisture, and then the ones that need it dry are going to fall in the places that need drier. But there's going to be seeds that need moisture that fall in a dry spot, and they're just not going to pop up. But you're going to have something in there that will pop up.
But
That's what you're trying to do.
What I do love is that Saul's making good choices, and he's making good ecological choices. I did see today on Facebook about legislature for reducing lawn reduction credits. That's a bill that is, it was Save Barnegat Bay posted the article, and I guess in legislation is a bill for giving lawn reduction credits. So, and I would imagine that's going to be in New Jersey if they're posting it. So that's one, keep your eye on. That would be a phenomenal progressive approach for credits for reducing your lawn. I would love to see that. Yeah,
and I think that happened, I'm gonna say it's in Minnesota. A couple years ago. I might be misremembering. It was something that just it pops up on Facebook and social media all the time that, hey, look what Minnesota did. But it was actually a couple years ago that they did it.
Yeah, I'm
pretty sure that's what it was. But yeah.
Awesome. All right. Next, I haven't done this in a while, but I do have a complaint. So I always try to keep it to a minute or less. So we kind of touched on it earlier with the reclassifications of plant names. Have I complained about this already?
You may have, but I'm
thinking I may have. We always say that common names are so many common names, and it could be area specific that we really live and die by the botanical names. But when you change the botanical names, it's not like everyone gets a report that says, here's the new botanical name. It just kind of gets changed and it gets rolled out. It may take some places 3 to 4 years to change the name, and then you change it and people don't know what it is. It's really hard to educate because there's no education behind it. It just kind of gets thrown out there. So it's when you live and die by something and it changes all the time, it's hard to keep people on board because they don't know, especially like we've had red chokeberry. Not only did they change the genus, they changed the species. So it went from Aronia arbustifolia to Photinia pyrifolia. Like people see that and they don't know what that is at all.
Oh yeah.
And it makes it really difficult. So if I'm not against changing the name, there really needs to be some sort of standard rollout, I think, for the name change. I don't know how to do that or how it would be, but it's that those classification changes are very confusing to a lot of people. And if I've complained about this already, I apologize.
Yeah, well, we still see Scirpus come up, and where a handful of those have moved to Shaenoplectus.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of some of the other ones.
Well, Scirpus validus is Shaenoplectus tabernae-montana. So it's really difficult.
Yeah.
But and you'll send someone an order confirmation. They'll be like, I didn't order this. What is it? And you're like, well, the name's been changed. It says.
And it seems like a lot of the eupatoriums have been reclassified lately, and you have Eurotrichums and Conoclinums and all kinds of stuff. So it's I understand the reasoning, but it's a pain in the neck.
Yeah. I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to stop doing it. I'm just saying I wish there was some kind of universal rollout where everyone knew. But it's, everyone provides information in a different way. Like, and even sometimes you find out about it through backhand channels, and it's, that's what makes it difficult. Like you're reading about it and it's like, this happened 6 months ago. Like we didn't know. It's not like you receive a notice. And that's what makes it difficult.
It's really when people start asking for something that you haven't heard of, and then you look it up and you're like, oh, that's what it is.
That's what that is now. When did that happen?
There's after we're done, I gotta tell you another one that I just came across today or yesterday. So
all right.
One of the viburnums.
And it's hard, like if you put out literature, like our catalog only comes out every other year, and if you put it out and there's a name change, then it's invalid immediately. It's really hard. And you try to be, maybe the answer is it's all digital and not print. I know a lot of people love holding their print catalog, but it's really hard to stay up to date with it. So, you want to do a pod deck?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we're actually, this is one of our shorter episodes. We're about 53, 54 minutes in. This may be our shortest episode in probably like 3 months.
Yeah, in a while.
We're going through it pretty quick. I got to say, all right. And I remembered the pod deck cards this time. barely.
I would say while it is going to be one of our shorter episodes, it's definitely not one of our least or less chatty episodes.
No,
sure.
you got some really interesting information. none of which is about plants.
Well, some of it's about
some
plants.
of it is
You
about
know,
plants.
if you're have an upset tummy, you should go boil some geranium maculatum.
There you go. Or if,
maybe it'll help.
All right. Let me get a pod deck card here. See our pod deck cards. Comment on industry gossip. I don't know that I know any industry gossip right now. Do you?
Yeah, not that I can think of.
No, I can't. You know what? No, we're not going to do that one. Let me find something else here.
We're not a very gossipy industry.
I thought we did share a time-saving tip, didn't we?
I don't remember.
All right.
You're the keeper of the cards. So.
All right. Morning inspirational pep talk for your listeners.
Like what we do, or giving
no,
them
we're going to give them a morning.
So every morning I look at myself in the mirror and say, "You are strong. You are capable. you are kind." Is that from a movie? Am I like just like completely misquoting a movie?
Al Franken with Stuart. Was it Stuart Smalley?
Oh, I don't know what that is. I don't know who either of those people are.
Either I'm really dating myself, or I'm really dating myself. All right, because I'm sure that's from the early 90s. So, no, I think here's my morning inspirational pep talk. I honestly feel that everyone has a responsibility to take care of our ecosystem and our environment, but everyone's participation, unfortunately, is voluntary. Start wherever you can start however small you start. It makes a difference. Everyone's eyes focus at different rates. So, there are people that are vegan that started off as vegetarian, like were meat eaters for a long time, went to vegetarian, went to vegan. Like it different stages of your life, things come into focus at different times. So what you're doing does make a difference, regardless of how much or how small. But the fact that you're choosing to make a difference is huge. So don't let the amount that you do, limit what you do. Just keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully over time, if you can do more, you can do more. Be accepting of all the different arguments. In that, we've tried to create a space where all sides of the argument can be heard and that they can all combine and do the greater good together, because we need everyone to do this. And you're a part of everyone and you're doing a good job. Keep spreading the message, keep being tolerant, keep being accepting, and it's just going to continue to grow. It's where we're at now, especially with our community and the podcast and the education and the information from where we were a year ago is huge, but it didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly. You may not even noticed it was changing, but it changed. Like now there's a visible metric that you can go through and measure and see the difference. So keep being a part of it. Keep doing what you can do. Sometimes you're going to be able to do more than other times, but keep doing the right thing. We're on the right track. It's helping. How's that?
That was pretty good. I like it.
Awesome.
So mine's a little bit more generic. But basically everything you do any given day is either going to add value or subtract value. So like it's when you wake up in the morning, you're making choices, and every choice you make is either adding value or subtracting value. There is no medium. There's no, I'm staying the same on value, because you could be adding value if you're doing something that keeps you in the status quo. So you're always losing value by not adding value. So that's the big thing. But the other what I always come back to is I draw like a not a tic-tac-toe board, basically a square, and then I'll just put like a cross in it, a normal cross. So you have 4 squares, like a Punnett square, basically. And on the top I'll put urgent, not urgent, and then on the side I'll put important, not important, and then just kind of chart some of the things I did in the day or that I have to do in the day, and say, well, how many of these things are urgent, and then how many of these things are where they fall in importance. So like answering or what was I going to say, signing up for a Publishers Clearinghouse thing is something that's not important, but it is urgent. You got to, if you want to do it, you got to do it right away.
Yes.
So there's urgency there, but it's not important, where you may have things that are like putting together a business plan or working on on a goal that you have. Those are things that are important, but they're not urgent. And that's kind of where I like to spend most of my day, is doing things that are important but not urgent. Urgent and important things are, hey, I gotta go pick up the kids from school so they don't get late, or I have to go to the gym because I want to get in better shape or something like that. Those are things that are urgent and important, but they're not building your brand 5 years from now, not building who you are 5 years from now, where those things that aren't urgent, but they're important. Those are the things that are most important to where you're going to go. They're not important today, or they're not something that's going to change where you are immediately, like going to the gym or like doing those things that are urgent. But they are going to change you in your future. So
that's a great point. Back when we had Benjamin Vogt on, I don't know anyone who is more passionate about straight species than Benjamin Vogt. Like, he's like, hey, cultivars aren't even an option. But when we had him on, he even was quick to say, you know what, but I still use air conditioning. I still have a car that utilizes gasoline. You make a series of choices, and we're all making those choices. You make the best choices for you, that hopefully, you do what you can for the environment, and you keep, one thing I thought was interesting, when my oldest son became an Eagle Scout, they give you a good deeds coin. And I can't remember which, like, I think it starts off in your right pocket, and when you do a good deed, you shift it to your left pocket. So you should always start off every day, trying to do that one good deed a day. So if you can do one good thing for the environment a day, that's a great place to start. If everyone did that, that would be huge. The same way we say, if everyone planted 2 to 3 native plants in their yard, just think about how big of a national park that would be for pollinators. It would make a huge difference. So if everyone can do that, it makes a huge difference. Keep spreading the message and doing.
Yeah.
How's that?
Oh, that was good. That was great.
I think that's a great way to end it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. So
end it on that note.
Go out and add some value. That's the big thing. So with that, we want to thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed listening to The Buzz. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Native Plants Healthy Planet, presented by Pinelands Nursery.
As always, we're going to give a huge thank you to RJ Comer for our Buzz theme music. Make sure you stream or buy RJ's music on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you consume your music. You can follow us on Twitter at Pineland Nursery, Facebook at Pinelands Nursery NJ, Instagram at Pinelands Nursery, or Native Plants Healthy Planet. Is that the other? For the Instagram, is it's like Native Plants _ Healthy Planets. There you go. So you can follow both. And you can also follow us on YouTube at Pinelands Nursery. Don't forget, we have the question and comment line. Please use it. We would love to hear from you. Call us at 215-346-6189. I will repeat, 215-346-6189. Ask us a question. Leave us a comment. If we pick your question or comment, we will play it on a future episode of The Buzz, and we'll answer it at that point. Let's not forget our Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group. I think we're up to 376 members. So it just keeps growing and growing, and I love it, and we can keep the conversation going over there.
Yeah. You can listen to Native Plants Healthy Planet directly at www.nativeplantshealthyplanet.com, but you can also check us out at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, really wherever you consume your podcasts. When you're there, please subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and definitely share this with a friend. It really, really, really helps. So you can even ask Alexa to play the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast at home, like I do when I'm washing the dishes. I don't know if you can leave a review there, but if you can, leave a review there too.
I don't know if you can. That's a good question.
My Alexa asked me to leave reviews for products all the time. So maybe you can. I have no
leave
clue.
a review.
So with that, thank you, everyone. I'm Tom.
And I am Fran. Thank you again, everyone. We'll see you next time we have a rooted discussion. We're actually recording.
Potentially. We're recording three episodes next week to get ahead of the curve.
With so if and some exciting ones. We think you'll be excited. We have some great guests coming on. So I'm really excited about that. So make sure you tune in for those. But the next one they hear after this will be.
It should be a rooted discussion. We have a guest for sure lined up. The rooted discussion is half lined up. So it should be lined up by then.
Yeah.
But we have a backup plan if not. And I think if it's the guest that you end up hearing,
you won't be disappointed.
It's going to be different, but I don't think you'll be disappointed.
You won't be disappointed. So we will see you again next time. Until then, keep it native.
Thank you for listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Remember to like, share, follow, and comment.